All right, let's see. It looks like everything is live here. I'm a few days late with this week's Retro Rob, and if you have been following my blog, or I think I put this on Patreon too, then you know why, and it is because of this mess that you see behind you here. I have completely torn apart my home office. I tore out all of my tables. I was using those outdoor style plastic picnic tables for tables when I moved into this room, and that was obviously not the end result that I was hoping for. It was kind of a temporary solution. It it's a story that none of you would care about, but I'm going to tell you the quick version. My wife, so the sometimes when I start to tell a story, I immediately stop and I have to think, where should I start this story? So, really, this story starts when we bought this house. When we bought this house, we were downsizing, or as my wife says, right sizing, which is true. And everything was going to fall into place once the workshop was finished building. So until that time, I was using a small bedroom for my home office. My wife was using our bedroom for her home office. I had all my stuff in storage in the garage. It was just a big mess. And so once the workshop and the movie room were done outside, then I moved into this room, which we had been using for a makeshift movie room. And then my wife moved into that room. So we've just been shuffling stuff around. And so when we moved, I wasn't really ready. So I put in these temporary tables. And then when my wife moved into my old office, which became her new office, she said she was going to go to IKEA and buy desktops and legs and make these tabletop desks. Well, the nearest IKEA to us is 4 hours away. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to build my own desks. I'm going to build custom desks, and I'm going to put these desktops up and blah, blah, blah. I've got a workshop, for goodness sake. I can cut wood, and I can do whatever I want. So we went to IKEA, and I saw the desktops, and they were super cheap. These desktops are 4 foot by 2 foot, and they were $9. And my wife was buying them, and I said, you know what? She talked me into it. She said, just buy them, Think about how much easier it's going to be than cutting plywood and sanding it and priming it and painting it. And plus, it had been a couple of months, and I hadn't done it to that point, so there was no evidence that I was going to do it anytime soon. So I said, all right, I'll do it. Sorry, I hope this doesn't make noise, but this is my first recording in the since I moved everything, and so I'm really just trying to. This is kind of a test as well as a Rando Rob. So I bought all the tabletops, and then she said, "You're going to buy legs?" And I was like, "No, I can make my own legs. I'll just cut legs out of 2x4s." And I built these legs when I got home, and they were terrible, and they weren't level, and it was a big mess. And so I said, fine, I'll order the legs. So when the legs came in last week, I had the tabletops. I put them all together. I've been shifting everything around, and now I'm right in the process of hooking everything back up. So I have my computer finally up as of today, and my work computer is over here to my left. And I got there's the C64. It's weird. It's always mirrored, running BMC 64, but now I've got enough space. I'm going to hook up either the Ultimate 64 or my real 64. The Amiga is back there running on the Mist, as is the Pi ANSI, showing off ANSI computer artwork, but I'll have to reposition those. Also, I've had a few people tell me that this is annoying, all this white space. So I've tried to zoom in a little bit, but now that the tables are in, that white space is going to be shelves very soon. So anyway, thanks for bearing with me. I'm sorry that I'm a couple days late here. I really do appreciate you guys. And man, without you guys, this show would be doo-doo. I mean, Technically, sometimes the show is doo-doo even with you guys, but it's not you guys' fault. I am the doo-doo. So anyway, as you can see over here to my side, the item that I'm going to show you is Yars Revenge. And I'm sure you're going to say, well, Rob, I'm familiar with Yars Revenge. I've played some Yars Revenge on the Atari 2600. And I guess what would be interesting is that on the shelf right above where I sit are not one, but two copies of Yars Revenge, which other than some slight fading, or perhaps that's just the lighting, no, it looks like one's a slightly different shade than the other. It doesn't really look like that to my naked eye. I guess this one would be a little bit more orange, and this one's a little bit more red, but that's not really the reason that I have two of these. The reason that I have two of these is because if you look on the back, this one has been signed by Howard Scott Warshaw, who was the not only the creator of Yars Revenge and of Raiders of the Lost Ark for the Atari 2600, but also probably most infamously known as the creator of E.T., which some people say is responsible for the downfall, the video game crash of 1983. Now, I had an unpopular opinion for many years, which has now become a more popular opinion. I constantly said back in 1983 two different things. One, I think I said three things. Number one, that game had nothing to do with the video game crash. That is, I think when you are a journalist, and especially if you're a journalist that might be reporting on something that you don't know that well, or that you're not deeply versed in, and that's not the right way to say that. I don't want to say that. What I'll say is this: it's easy to show an example by pointing to a single thing. It's easy to explain. You can say, well, the reason dinosaurs went extinct is because this and that, blah, blah, blah. Or you can say, well, a meteor hit. And that probably, how did I get off on that? I don't know anything about meteors, but my point is that, it's easier to explain to someone if there's just one thing. And so you could say, boy, there were a lot of bad games, and people were looking so much forward to E.T., and when they got it, it was a bad game, and there was this huge backlash. Well, it makes for a nice story, but it's not really the case. If you were there, it's not really the case. And I guess the other thing that I always say about the video game crash, and by the way, I did a whole podcast about the video game crash. If you want to go back and look at the old episodes of You Don't Know Flack, there's an entire episode about the video game crash of 1983, in my perception, having lived through it. But the other thing that I often say is that I didn't notice it. What I noticed, what a great time to start mowing the lawn right outside my window. I could not catch a break. Oh, my goodness. Well, anyway, what I noticed as a kid in 1983 is that games were cheaper. I understand that there was a crash, and that there was a difficult in the market of moving new games. But what that meant was the games they had in stock, the prices dropped. And so when I was a kid and I went to TG&Y with my mom, or the local, what was the other place that we went to? Not Kmart, but I don't know, just like the little drugstore type places. I remember them having bargain bins with Atari games, and Atari games were all of a sudden $5 or $10. I do remember $5 games, especially the silver boxed ones, with Dig Dug and, the later releases like that, Galaxian, I specifically remember getting at that point when it was cheap. So what the video game crash meant for me was that I got more games. It wasn't that things went away. It was that I got more stuff, and the other part of that, the other side of the coin, is that I was a retro or early, I guess you would say, home computer adopter as well. So to say, oh, there was this huge video game crash, not to me. I had an Apple II in 1983. I was a few years away from getting my Commodore 64. So for me and my friends, there were games aplenty. And then of course, when people say there was this huge market crash, I mean, that's in 83 and then in 85 is the Nintendo. So, I mean, a year or two where things were cheap. I don't know. I think it's overstated and overrated. There's a term that I just made up. But so anyway, I went to a gaming expo one year. I believe it was probably 2005 based on the data. So 04 or 05. And someone else had just got back from one of the big gaming, I think it was probably Classic Gaming Expo, or probably CGE, and had got Howard Scott Warshaw to sign this cartridge. I don't know why, but this cartridge ended up getting donated as a door prize to another computer show or gaming show, which was OVGE, the Oklahoma Video Game Expo, which I attended, and I won this as a door prize. Now, the problem is, if you're going to display this, if you put this on a shelf, people have no idea what it is. They go, what is that? It's some scribbling on this thing or whatever. But if you display it this way, then people go, why do you have a copy of Yars Revenge up there? Which is why I have the second copy of Yars Revenge, which is not signed. And so on my shelf, I have them displayed like this, so that when you see them, you go, oh, it's Yars Revenge, and I go, yep, and look right there. It's signed by Howard Scott Warshaw. By the way, if you didn't know that said Howard Scott Warshaw, I only know because when I won it, somebody told me. It's, I guess when you're the inventor of the programmer of the game that crashed the entire video game industry, maybe he crashed it by his signature. Maybe he was supposed to sign something that said keep video games going for another year, and he signed it like that, and nobody knew what it was, and so that's why the video game world crashed. While we're killing time, I will tell you that I'm a huge fan of Yars Revenge. I had this game when I was a kid. I love Yars Revenge. I'm assuming you're familiar with it, but if you're not, you control a Yar, and I'm going to draw a blank, but Ray, and I can't think of his last name, but he was the president of Atari at the time, and so Yar was Ray backwards, which is where they got the term Yar from. And you control the Yar. You're this little fly-looking spaceship, and you fly through a protective force field as this little missile is trying to get you, and you peck at this force field until the spiral is vulnerable, and then you shoot your ion missile or whatever, and then there's two different levels, and you just alternate back and forth. Yars Revenge, I love the gameplay, but a couple of the reasons why I also like it. One, I love the trivia fact that the force field that displays in the game is actually made up of the game's code. And you can find out about this. I believe this is covered in the book Racing the Beam, which is a fantastic book. If you haven't read that and you have any interest about how classic video games were programmed and created, you should definitely check that out, Racing the Beam. And they talk about how there wasn't enough code left in the game to create the force field. And so what the force field is doing is literally displaying the code of the game as it's scrolling up and down, which it's such a fun little trivia fact. The other thing I love about Yars Revenge is if you are I went to college the first time. I got my associate's degree in journalism, and I got my master's degree in professional writing. So as you can imagine, I am pretty nitpicky when it comes to grammar and rules and things like that. And so whenever I see people say, when they write Yars, Y-A-R apostrophe S, that's not right. As you can see by the title right there next to me, the title of the game is Yars, Y-A-R-S apostrophe. And that is because it is the entire race of Yars who are getting revenge. And so when you pluralize something, like if it were the humans revenge, I suppose it would be humans with an S apostrophe. And so it is Yars Revenge. Now, there was a sequel to this released later on iOS that I bought, which was called Yars Revenge, Y-A-R apostrophe S. So technically there is a Yars Revenge. It's just not this game. But I don't know that makes me like the game anymore or not, but it drives me crazy when I see Y-A-R apostrophe S, which was such a weird thing to drive a person crazy. It doesn't really make any sense. But so anyway, that is the item that I have on display. Again, I will show you that right here we have the signature, the signed version of Yars Revenge, and then right next to it on my shelf, I also have the unsigned one. And so when I put them like that on my shelf, people could go, "What is that?" I go, "It's a signed copy of Yars Revenge." And nobody ever asks why there's an unsigned copy. I think it's just a mental thing. They see that and they get it. So as always, again, I apologize for being a day or two late. Thank you guys for all your support on Patreon. I really appreciate it. I am hoping that the audio quality and everything, it looks like everything is working fine. I will say that I used some of my Patreon money to buy some sound deadening tiles, and I put those on the wall behind my monitors for when I was doing recording. But now that I've moved all the tables around, they're not exactly behind me. They're actually like here, and over this way. And now the phone's ringing. I cannot win. And so I don't know how you guys are, but I'm getting a call every day from the school system about COVID status and whether or not they're going to our school everybody made the decision if your kids were going to stay home or go back in. But we had to make that decision several months ago. And so we made that decision when COVID numbers were at rock bottom here in Oklahoma. And so then they changed things very quickly and they held people to the decision that you had made previously. And so our kid is back in school, and now they're giving us the number of COVID positive tests every day for the school. And once it hits a certain number, they're going to close the schools back down. So it'll be an interesting voicemail waiting for me on the phone. What a strange time, and wouldn't it be easier if I wish that COVID were the little spiral in Yars Revenge and that we could just go peck and shoot it with a missile. That would be so much better. But like everybody else, we're just trying to wait it out and be as safe as we can. So anyway, thank you guys for your patience, and thanks for supporting the show on Patreon, and thanks for supporting me. If you have any requests about specific items or types of items or anything else that you want to see, feel free to leave a message on Patreon or shoot me an email or anything like that. And I will work in whatever you guys want. So thank you so much, and I will talk to you next week.